call the meeting for May 14th to order for the Planning and Zoning Commission, local planning agency. We'll start with an invocation and a pledge of allegiance, and then we'll do the roll call. So if everyone will please stand. Heavenly Father, as we gather here before you tonight, we ask a blessing on our meeting. Give us the wisdom to make good decisions for our city as we pass those decisions on to our commission. We ask a blessing on all of our residents as we get ready for the summer and school's getting ready to be out. Let everyone have a safe and an enjoyable summer, come back to school and work refreshed after that time. We ask a blessing on all of our first responders as they go about their business keeping us safe. Please, Lord, keep them safe. And as always, we ask a blessing on our military. Wherever they are in the world, keep them safe and bring them home to us. We ask all of this in your name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Madam Clerk will ask for a roll call there.
Chair Keller.
Present.
Vice Chair Williams.
Present.
Member Mellon.
Here.
Member Wunderlich.
Here.
And Member Bernstein has resigned. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Consent agenda. So we have the minutes of the Planning and Zoning meeting that was held on April 9th. And so we'll now take up the consent agenda and ask if I can get a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on April 9th, 2019.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Vice Chair Williams, a second by Member Wunderlich. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. There is no old business, so that goes us into the new business, and we'll start with Rustique. This will be a public hearing, and we'll turn it over to City Planner Rumor.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, Mike Rumor, City Planner. The item before you is an annexation of property into the city limits, followed by a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment from office professional to commercial, and a rezoning to commercial 3C3. Property is located on the north side of Roberson and just west of the intersection of McGuire Road and Roberson Road. It's just under 3 acres at 2.93 acres in size. The property consists of a single-family home and some outbuildings. The area has, Roberson Road was refurbished and changed with the development of the Casa Marilla Apartments. So it was widened, and turn lane was extended, and it does have a median which runs down to about this point at the entrance to the apartments. Roberson Road from McGuire to the entrance of the subdivision over here is under city's ownership and maintenance, and then it goes to the county west of that. You can see the area has, there's an office development, a City of Ocoee water treatment plant. There's a Class 6 Smiles dentistry, a single-family home. Across the road, you have commercial, daycare, Walgreens, apartments, and then commercial node on the other corners. Draw that attention to you because when you look at the zoning map, you'll see the parcels in white are still unincorporated Orange County. The professional offices and services zoning. Across the road, it shows it as unclassified. And when you look at the land use map, I just want to kind of tell you that the land use map doesn't fully tell a true story if you just look at the colors on the map. So what happens is as I showed, the water treatment plant is really an institutional use. It would be blue. But when you look on the south side of this area, let me say this property next door, which is still in the county, recently was bought and converted to a veterinary clinic. The water and sewer usage was very similar to the single-family homes. So they were able to maintain They're well and septic, and there we didn't get a chance to annex them into the city. But this is an active veterinary clinic on this parcel right here. As you can see on the south, and I'll come to the land use map, it looks like low-density residential. This is the Belmere PUD, Plan Unit Development, which was approved in Orange County. It's a large PUD. It afforded the opportunities for, of course, single family. It had commercial, it had townhomes, it had high density retail. And for years, this segment, I'll go back to the aerial, was undeveloped. And the developer, who had since developed it all, came to the city and said he wanted to develop under the city of Ocoee. It would have required a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment change, and it was deemed to be a better process to just simply annex the property and keep the Orange County zonings in place. So that's why the map, the existing land use in Orange County is citrus rural. We don't have a rural land use in our comprehensive plan. Our future land use map, it shows that if it were to come in under a normal condition, would take away the existing PUD, would come in as residential. But because that PUD afforded all these opportunities, it developed out different than what it appears. So you have commercial across the road, you have 284 units, apartments, and then, as I showed on the map, the zoning, you have a veterinary office, which would be a commercial land use as well. So I just wanted to draw that to your attention. The project before you today is to, A, annex this parcel in. It meets the state criteria for annexation. It's contiguous to the city of Ocoee on the east and south. Second is small-scale land use amendment, map change. It's under 10 acres, changing it from professional offices and service to commercial. And then the third is rezoning it to C3 commercial. The applicant, Rustique, as you may have heard, has a restaurant in the city of Ocoee and intends to use this site for a future restaurant. The applicant is present if you have any questions, and with that, I'll entertain any further questions. This is not a plan unit development, so you're not seeing a plan, it's just straight zoning. The development process will continue later on.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions of staff?
I do, Mr. Chair. Because I noticed I was struggling there with the maps, trying to understand what was really happening in the area from a land use and zoning standpoint. So my question is, because what I'm struggling with is compatibility, I think. So with that coming in, with it coming in as commercial and being surrounded by professional office services, and then what is that to the south of it?
South,
To the south of it being kind of like a PUD kind of?
Yes, so this would be commercial and a PUD. It would look like, see how that PUD is red and you have brown?
Okay.
This, if you flip this and move the brown to where the residential lots are, the commercial would cover here, so it would be surrounded in red here. You have existing nice office complex here. You have city water treatment, which would change it to it's not an office. It could be under commercial, or it could be under institutional.
Okay.
A dentist office, which is an office and in commercial. We have a dentist office right here across the road as well.
And that is a pharmacy on the corner there, right? On the south?
Right here,
South corner.
Walgreens,
Okay,
yes,
good.
yeah. And so then the veterinary clinic would be more commercial oriented than office. And then these are still have an office land use to the west, but they are still in Orange County and single family, and it's a horse farm and stuff like that. So the land use map, and then I have what the proposed land use
Right.
for this. It doesn't truly indicate how it's being used as an existing land use out in the area, so.
Okay.
Any other questions? And I guess the applicant is here, so we can invite the applicant up to introduce himself, give the name and address, and if he's got anything he'd like to say there.
Got to experience this once in my life, right? So, give it a shot. Hello, my name is Brian Butner. Jonathan and I are the co-owners of Rustique.
Okay.
Address 1568 McGuire Road, Ocoee 34761.
All right. And does anyone have any questions for the applicant or anything you'd like to add, or before we open the public hearing? Go ahead.
Would this be table service at a level similar to or above what the current Rustique offers?
Correct. It's a full service restaurant. We will elevate it slightly, just to be a little bit more welcoming. But as far as the standards, it'll be the same.
What do you anticipate the capacity being?
Seating wise, or
Yes.
seating wise, 150 to 200. The same size as what we are currently right now. It's
I
a
see.
5,000 square foot space that we have currently. So the same size seating area.
Very good.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right. Seeing none, this is a public hearing. So what we'll do is we'll open the public hearing, and if anyone from the public has any questions, please make sure you fill out a form so that we have your name and address on record. But other than that, come on up and ask questions if you have any. All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. And this particular,
Sir, I
We have-
believe there is a gentleman.
oh, yeah, come on. All right, sorry. Yeah, come on up. Yeah, you can go.
All right, go sit down. Okay.
Can't wait to go to the restaurant.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Tim Blaze. I own one of the properties, the office, if you can point to it there, 2723 McGuire.
Okay.
And we're adjacent, as you can see, to the restaurant, so I'm here with a couple of the other landowners. Obviously, you know, we had the same thoughts about compatibility, and a number of things run through our minds as we look at our properties and how they're used and our tenants, and I'll give the headlines. 5,000 square feet, we think about things like traffic. This is already a really, I don't know how many people have driven through it, but trying to get across there and around, we talked about the median that goes down the center of Roberson. If you come this way, well, I'm not very good with directions, how you have to loop back around, you're not gonna be able to turn in. So some safety concerns there and just general flow and access. The, a restaurant, we love restaurants, we love Rustique, but, noise, how big is it? How does the parking work? We've heard rumors about a rooftop bar, different things like that, which, fun, but again, compatibility to the adjoining businesses and the things restaurants bring, both good and also some things they bring in terms of, pest, the dumpster setting and the way trash works. We're concerned with the adjacencies. It's kind of a little strange how, it's going to back right up to the buildings, right? They're not all going the same way. And is there some sort of barrier between the two and how that would work? So, we have a lot of questions kind of running through our minds about what this looks like, how it's going to sit there, how these things are going to play out, how it's going to impact kind of our businesses in there, our tenants in there. So that's just the headlines. We wanted to get it out here and join and share those things. We like it. Listen, I'll speak for myself here. The idea of a restaurant, love restaurants, love going there, love Rustique. We'd love to see how the two coexist together, but we'd also like to put some of our concerns out there to be able to better understand it, to be good neighbors and kind of work together. That's it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, just do please fill out one of the forms in the back, just so we have your name and address on record there.
You got it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mike, you want to take a crack
Just
at
say,
some of
well,
those, or?
Chairman, under the next step, which would be site plan review, the project would, if it didn't meet any of the code requirements for a commercial restaurant, that would be a waiver that would come to the commission. The compatibility is, the way I look at it is, office is predominantly 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, on a majority of the use. The restaurant is a lunch, dinner, and after dinner, later on that night. So you have the compatibility of a restaurant adjacent to office happens in a lot of places. I don't see a compatibility issue with a restaurant use adjacent to an office use. There's not a requirement to buffer commercial adjacent to office, because you can have office in a commercial zoning. So there's no buffering other than, you know, when you're working on a site, looking at a site, good fences make good neighbors. That will be reviewed. Traffic-wise, you're talking about difference in trips that may be the same as office. It's a different type of a trip at a restaurant. It happens later on in the day and not 8 and 5. The Roberson Road, the level of services out there are not failing. However, these properties were considered as office in the planning. It wasn't agricultural or residential. So you're not creating a bunch of new trips on this lot. That was already planned for with the office land use. Now, how trips will move? Is this restaurant a pass-by type restaurant? Is it a destination? It's just, we have to look at it as a restaurant. It just has a code, restaurant, when you're looking at the ITE for trip generation and how traffic disperses. You hope all your restaurants are the most popular, but you know, it could be a different restaurant in the future than Rustique. So we can't look at it based off, well, it's a restaurant we expect to be popular. It's just restaurant, it generates a number of trips, just as office generates a number of trips. So there's really not a big discrepancy in those trips between office and commercial. That trip type is different. It doesn't create a peak hour trip, which conflicts with other peak hours. So if you have a residential use or a school, that peak AM, that peak afternoon, this restaurant does not create a peak trip during those hours. It's off-peak. So the transportation is not really a big issue. This site does not have full access. It's right in, right out. The operators of this business, they did due diligence, and that is operational that is okay with them. You're not gonna be able to make a left in. You can't make a left in due to safety issues. So there will not be a left in put in place. And they are fine with that. So kind of, until we can see the plan and see how it's positioned, it'll have to meet the setbacks, which is under straight zoning, it's 25 and 20 and 10 and 10. There's landscape buffers. Until you see, okay, how is this building positioning? We know on the west side we have a commercial use. It used to be a residential use, even though it was planned to be something different in the future. Now it's a commercial use and not a residential use. We know on the east side what we have. And that's why I gave the explanation on the land uses. The existing uses is different than what it appears on the land use map. And, you know, dumpster, they'll have to have dumpsters, they'll have to, noise, it's a restaurant. There's, just as in any non-residential use, even residential use, all we have to go by is our city ordinances on noise. Can a restaurant generate more noise if they have outside seating? Potentially. But again, we can only look at it as a restaurant with outside seating, not a specific type of restaurant and how they operated for this period of time. That's not written in codes as a regulator. We're not able to pinpoint other than say, okay, they're going to serve alcohol. Our alcohol ordinance says amplification of sound. We have a provision that limits amplification of sound if you're serving alcohol outdoor amplification of sound. So we have other codes to kind of deal with those issues in the city ordinance, not land development code.
Mr. Rumor, it was what, a year and a half ago or so that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of establishing a craft brewery in a residential neighborhood?
That was a special exception, yes, in our future downtown, but it was, yes, there's a single-family home next to it and behind it, yes, yes.
It would strike me that that might have been a more incongruent situation than what we would be talking here with the restaurant. I was just hoping you'd have an opinion on that.
With proximity to existing single-family residential, that use is adjacent to that. This is not adjacent to existing single-family residential, and the closest, there is in the rear, this large parcel has a single-family home. It has a for sale sign a lot of the times, but there is a single-family home there, and you have the subdivisions, and, you know, one parcel over, you have single-family on an agricultural county in a future office land use.
Thank you, sir.
Any additional questions for applicant or any? Okay. All right. Hearing no others, we'll close the public hearing. Bring it back to the board. For this, there is 3 motions that are necessary. One for the first one will need to be for the annexation, then we'll need one for the small-scale comprehensive plan, and then one for the rezoning. So I will get a motion to recommend the approval of the annexation of the property into the city.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion that the Planning and Zoning Commission, acting as the local planning agency, recommend approval of the proposed annexation, project AX-04-19-81, excuse me.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All right, have a motion by Member Wunderlich, a second by Vice Chair Williams. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, we need a motion. Second motion is going to be for the small-scale comprehensive plan. Can I get a motion for that, please?
So, Mr. Chair, I move that we acting as the Planning and Zoning Commission, acting as the land planning agency, recommend approval of the proposed, of the small-scale comprehensive plan amendment, number project CPA 2019-003.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion by Vice Chair Williams. We have a second by Member Mellon. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. And last but not least, we need a rezoning to the C3 General Commercial in Ocoee. So can we have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to recommend rezoning Rusty at the project number RZ 190404.
All right. And we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Member Mellon, second by Vice Chair Williams. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. So that's welcome to the neighborhood there, gentlemen. The next item is the Greens at Forest Lake, I believe it is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Greens at Forest Lake, phases 1 and 2.
Yes.
And for this is again a public hearing, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Rummer again.
This may have been your first meeting as this P and Z, the rezoning of this property, large-scale comp plan amendment. This is the preliminary and final site plan for the Greens at Forest Lake. We had processed back in December a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment and received approval from the state, which rezoned the property for a townhome development. And on 29.17 acres, Has up to 8 dwelling units an acre. There's a 2-lot, 100-lot townhome development with a density of 6.89 dwelling units an acre. As you can see, it's on the west side of 429. It's sort of at this weird, if I show you from the aerial, it used to be landlocked until the Arbor's PUD came in and we had them extend the road and provide it all the way up to the trail access. This is the West Orange Trail on the west side. This is a remnant road. They still call this remnant piece West Road, even though this is West Road. They are going to be 200 200 unit townhome development in 2 phases. They have to get a permit, which they're in the process of getting from Orange County Trails to cross the trail. The subdivision has an amenity up front, which will be in phase 2. It has 2 phases to the development, master stormwater pond in the middle. There's this spike strip you can see on the south. It's about 30 feet. They are dedicating this, donating it, dedicating it to the city of Ocoee. Gives us a possibility of an additional future access road. You need 50 feet. If we can get it from the future, these other property owners in the future, we can at least tie it in and try to get this portion of this road is not paved, but you can at least have emergency access, need be, and hopefully one day have a secondary road. But at this point, the project is going to be phased with, this is the trail connection here, phase 1, and then we have, you can see highlighted, this is phase 2. So phase 1 is everything up near the western side front of the development, and then phase 2 is along the 429. Really, the phasing is just a product of how they operate and expect to do the takedown. It's the whole development's going to be developed at once. It's just those buildings they anticipate coming in at a later phase. And you enter one place, there's a ring road, cul-de-sac, access point. They'll stabilize in the meantime while we don't have a road there, so you can drive across it as an emergency vehicle. Not much else to it. The Development Review Committee did meet in April. I said that they hadn't met yet, and we anticipated to bring this earlier, and we didn't make it, so it did have the Development Review Committee in April, and they're recommending approval, and this is close to being stamped, approved for construction. We're looking forward to this development. The builder is Meritage Homes. So, with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Okay, any questions?
Mr. Chair, just not necessarily concerned about the property itself, but I thought the little square that's left out there, the yellow
Yes.
square,
Yes.
should I use my pointer?
They won't show up on TV, but yeah, you can use it.
Yeah, let's see, where'd it go? Go back to the other one, where,
Do you want the
Yeah.
air?
that square, that one
Yes.
right there. Didn't at the last time the property owner come in,
Yes.
did they ever work that out?
They had a meeting, did not work out. I've been in
Okay.
contact, her name's Malka. This project is, as I said, these were landlocked until this road came. And part of their development, they're building the road, and we're providing a public road right in front of her property.
Okay.
So her property is more developable
Yeah.
than it was before. And she's 84, asked she come here to this meeting just to say she wants to still work with people on this project, and there was no reason to come from Tampa for that. She understands that she now has a public road when they construct it in front of her property and the benefit, and she's trying to figure out someone to develop. She has hired a planner, a really good planner that I've been in contact with, trying to figure out what uses on that property. It would have to be annexed, it's still in the county, but there are options, so,
Okay.
yes.
I was going to say the same thing. I know she mentioned her only concern was being landlocked, and it looks like that's alleviated.
Yes.
All right. Let's see, this one, we only need one. Oh, well, actually, I got to open the public hearing. Sorry about
Yes.
that. Before I do that, Does the applicant have any
Applicant is
questions, want to
present.
say anything, or no? All right. So then what we'll do is we'll open the public hearing. Anybody have any questions, concerns on it? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing, bring it back. For this one, we only need one motion, so can I get a motion to, for the large-scale preliminary final site plan for this project?
So, Mr. Chair, I move that we, acting as the Planning and Zoning Commission, or as the Planning and Zoning Commission, recommend approval of the preliminary final subdivision plan for Greens at Forest PUD Phases 1 and 2, project numbers LS 2019-002.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, so I have a motion by Vice Chair Williams, seconded by Member Mellon. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. Yes.
Mr. Rumor, for my own benefit of knowing more things, is it possible to have a lot that is less than 24 feet wide in any sort of development?
Yes, yeah.
That's, I realize this just seems to me to be getting down to,
It's townhomes, so it's
I
not
understand.
detached. And, for instance, where the Casa Marilla apartments are and that commercial I showed on the corner of Roberson, that had an approval for 16-foot wide, single, it looked like military barracks. And, but we have several townhome communities that have one-car garage. They're not 24, they're smaller than 24. The city has made by commission expression and staff expression, we want our townhome developments to be two-car garage, higher end. You can have them, you get a building of 6 and 4, you can have an end cap with a one car here and there, but you're getting two-car garage product for townhome.
thank you, sir.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, the next item is a variance,
Okay.
which will be the first variance that this board has heard. It used to be heard at the Board of Adjustment. And so just wanted to kind of introduce it to you all, and it's a different type of review. There's not an ordinance. There's not a land development code engineering for the engineer at the end of the table here. Really look that you make with these. Florida statutes lays out criteria for variances, and our land development code incorporates them in there. To give you a generalization, on a non-commercial, a lot of commercial variances deal with sign size and stuff like that, parking. We generally use a lot of that through a waiver process, but a variance is also can be used. In a residential setting, really the only property that is set up to meet all of the criteria to receive a variance is like a pie-shaped piece of property with huge historic oaks that falls off into has a lot of terrain, and you can't put the house, or you couldn't put the addition anywhere. You wouldn't be able to use it unless you got the variance. So the variance, all that to say, the variance criteria is tough to make and check all those off. And it's just somebody rarely they can come up and say, yes, you deserve the variance because you can't do anything with your property. You will not really find that type of a variance come before you. You're a recommendatory board. You look at the criteria, you look at the area, you make a judgment call. Commercial is a little bit easier to be really strict, and because this is the area, Highway 50, it's in our urban downtown. Residential, it's just take a look at it and make a decision. So just want to kind of give you that introduction for the variances. And with that, I'll bring up Gregory Hines, my planner one. Thank you.
Good evening again. My name is Gregory Hines, the planner one for the record. And this is variance application number 1901. The property, as you can see here, is located off of Marlin Drive. It's actually 191 Marlin Drive. It's lot 31, and it's located in It's located in the subdivision of the
I believe It's Ocoee
Yeah.
Heights.
Yeah, Ocoee Heights subdivision. And right now, all of these homes here, as I go to the next one, you can see here, the zoning is R1 residential. So with R1 residential, there is a size setback of 7.5 feet. And that's for all the similar property here. This is just an area view that just show you where it sits at. And as you can see here, this is the surrounding zoning. So like I was mentioning earlier, all the other areas are also R1 zoning. So they also have that 7.5 feet setback. And the applicant is requesting to get a variance for the setback to be reduced from 7.5 feet to 5 feet in order to construct a one-car garage. It's gonna be about 9 by 10, the size of the garage. And he wanted to put that, here on the east side of the property, if you can kind of see it here. And with that, he was just asking for a variance to get that reduced by the 2 feet to 5 feet. And in there, we just had some certain things where I know we noted it in the staff report, but if you have any other questions regarding that, I can answer those.
I believe it made mention that it comes right up to the easement, but it does not go into the easement, is that correct?
It does encroach because there is a 5-foot easement. So by giving that 2 feet, it will go over that easement.
It will.
Yeah, it will. And there are like drainage issue that it may be drainage related because this community is an older community, so there's no retention pond. So drainage may be an issue later on.
And then let me interject. The easement is on a lot of these older subdivisions, they just gave a blanket easement for every lot. Within this specific subdivision, we used to put our utility meters in behind the houses and have utility lines in those side easements. In this particular subdivision, these lots don't have facilities in the easement. The 2.5 foot would be to give the construction of a building the room to decide what kind of block. If the structure encroaches the easement at the end, he would do a utility locate and then go through a easement vacate process where if there were going to have a utility line in the future, it could be on the east 3 foot of the 5 foot easement. These easements are generally just blanket. In the newer subdivisions, the easements are they put water, sewer, underground power, and all of that stuff there. So there's a 7.5 foot side setback. He's requesting a variance to go up to 5 feet, maybe extend if he has the opportunity and it can work, but there would be another step. If he has to go to encroach that 5 foot some, you can give a little variance on 6-8 inches. That would allow a different type block for the structure if it gets approved. It just allows him to look at other materials on how he's going to construct that. Is it 2x6, 2x4 block? So,
Is there a provision whereby contiguous property owners would have a say or at least offer commentary about this?
yes. So this variance has a sign in his yard. We send 300-foot notice. The applicant is here. He can talk about. I think he has letters.
Yes.
He has letters from the contiguous neighbors. So he's done some homework out there. But yes, we did sign it and all of that stuff.
Thank you.
Yes.
I got a question. How would this affect future residences that all of a sudden want garages, or would this like open the doors, so to speak, to the other residents, or to not apply for a variance, or could they just kind of
Right. Yes.
get permits for it?
No, it would not create the opportunity for everyone to just blanket get a permit to go up to 5 feet. It's on a case-by-case basis. So you want, some of the testimony, you look at the applicant and see what he's constructing. You know, is it a shed in between the building, the two houses? Or is it a addition to the house, those type of things you look at. Not every situation is the same. You know, is it above ground pool on the side yard between a house, or is it, so it doesn't give everyone the blanket right to have that, so.
Additional questions? All right, you did say the applicant was here, so we'll invite you up, give your name and address there, and your comments, since they mentioned that you did have some letters from neighbors there.
My name is Muhammad Ali, and I live at 1408 Vickers Lake Drive, Ocoee, for the last 17 years. I have been living there. I love the area, and it's the longest time I have ever lived in one home. Most have been 5 to 6 years. I've owned several properties in Orlando and Pine Hills area. I have sold them all, the last one last year. I now own several properties in Ocoee and will like to continue to live here, but was getting worried during the time we were losing business to Winter Garden. But things have changed with our new mayor. My request for a variance is to keep the uniqueness of the neighborhood by attaching a one-car garage on the eastern side like the rest of the neighboring properties. Like I said, in the past, I have some pictures. I lived in Palm Coast, and I owned a business in Bunnell, and this was directly across from City Hall. And when I bought that property, it was nothing to look at. I spent $40,000 and I enhanced the property and made it look like this. As you can see, the last part, the high part, that's the part that I added in, and I surfaced the entire area with cement, and I built a retention pond. And at that time, the retention pond was just introduced, so I had to go through a lot, going back and forth to Palatka to help even the engineers there to figure out what we will do. So the retention pond is at the back of the car wash, and then I had to build an outlet in event of the retention pond ever overflowing. So there's a overflow drainage to the back, right down to a canal in the back of the property. My property had occupied 200 feet of State Road, US 1. So all I'm asking is that I continue to have the uniqueness of the rest of the property in the area, which most of them have a one-car garage, and that's all that I'm. You would want to turn. You can continue. I took several pictures of the rest of the properties along.
Yeah,
I was
it's
gonna
not
say,
gonna
you're probably gonna
show,
get too
yeah.
much glare out of that. I don't think you're gonna get to see it too well.
We can
So
pass.
can we go back to
We
the
can pass the phone
aerial?
to them.
The areas.
Okay, this would be better. Huh? I'm sure it glare too much. So we can pass this on. Yeah? And you can.
It has to be submitted for the record if we can put it out there, so.
Oh, I see. Because, like, you know, I took all this here. So I went by and I took pictures of all the houses that are in the street, and they have the one-car garage, and that's all I'm asking, that this board grant me that variance so that I can make the area look unique and not go building something elsewhere. So that's all my story for you, and I ask that you think of it. I also would like to add that while I was there, I was servicing all the cars for the sheriff department, the judge, the property appraiser, the tax collector, and you name all the officials in the Bunnell City area, because they trusted me and I did a job that they were satisfied with, and I held this contract with the sheriff department for 6 of the 7 years I've spent there. And I have some pictures here of the cars that I was servicing for the sheriff department.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Can we bring the aerial back up, do you mind? Because I know, I'm a little confused by the statement that other houses have garages. Are they already attached? Is that what it is? They're already built into the homes, and his is not? So he needs to build it, and you're building it on the
Eastern side.
of the property.
The right side of it.
So, right. And so, okay, now I see. So these others, they have one built already into the home. Is that what it is?
Yes, they're all attached.
It's
Okay.
difficult to discern which ones actually do have an existing garage there. All I see is, that's the nature of overhead photography. You see a driveway, you see a vehicle.
I do have it here, but then
Yes, you can see here's one
I,
Okay,
across the road.
Thank you.
That's his property.
okay.
yeah.
It
that-
does,
that
thank you.
gives a true picture. And across the road, two, three of them.
Is this your own personal home? It's not like a rental or? This is
My
the-
son is living in
Your
that.
son lives there? Okay.
And this is the real reason why I'm doing this, because he has a car and he has 3 motorcycles.
Questions?
Okay, this was the time that I said I was servicing the cars for the Flagler County Sheriff Department, which I held this contract with them for 6 of the 7 years that I've spent there. And the only reason why I left there was because my 2 kids came to college at UCF, and my other son, he and his wife is in Boston. He's now the CEO of Carbonite, and his wife is a professor at Boston University. And my daughter here is Vice President of Human Resources with AutoNation. And then my last son, he does his own business. So thanks, and I hope that you consider my application, please.
Additional questions?
Yeah, I have one more for the homeowner. Is there any, when it rains or heavy rains, is there any, water settlement or flooding in that area? Because this will add to that issue if there is
I've
one.
owned that property for 10 years, and we had several storms, and never there was any flooding, and I've never known of any flooding in the previous years as long as I've been living there.
Thank you very much.
Additional questions? All right, this is a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing. I don't know if we have to announce for the record that they did give us that one list of people who were, who said they would be okay with it, which seemed to be the neighbors, so I just, for the record, we did get that, and we passed that over to the clerk.
Yes, we have a letter signed by several neighbors, just saying that they have no objection to the one-car garage. They've given their name, their address, and we will have this with the minutes of this meeting.
Thank you. All right. Any other? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing, bring it back to the board. Now this would, because it's I guess because it's the first time we're doing a variance, they've given me a little bit more to say on this, so we'll sort of go through this real quick here, just so we hit all the points, and correct me if I miss something there. Okay. Planner Hines is summarize the requirements for the P&Z, must find for the P&Z to recommend approval for the variance. These are special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structures, or required subdivision improvements involved, which are not applicable to other land structures or required subdivision improvements. That a literal interpretation of the provision of these regulations would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties with similar conditions. That special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. That granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by these regulations to other land structures or required subdivision improvements under similar conditions. In order to recommend approval of the variance request, the Planning Commission must find that the reason set forth in the application justifies granting the variance, and that granting the variance will be in harmony with the surrounding territory and not injurious to the public welfare. And having said that, I think we've caught everything I'm supposed to say here. We'll now need a motion to either for the recommendation or against.
May I ask one other question?
Certainly.
The existing homes that have existing garages, those appear to have been built under the roof as part of the house at the initial construction of the house and not added. Is that correct? Yes. Yours would be the first one to have an addition become the garage.
Yes, the addition will be part of the house, which will be the garage.
Thank
Like
you.
the others.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have another question.
Certainly.
With these items or criteria that the applicant must demonstrate, is it and? So he has to demonstrate all of these things?
Yes, those are the 4 factors in the City of Ocoee Code for, to grant a variance.
Yeah, but would it be an and or an or?
It's an and, they're all 4 requirements.
In order to receive like a approval without needing testimony in a sense. So it's up to the purview of the board to think, if he makes and or, that's up to your purview.
I guess because when I look at this, I mean, especially the fact that most of the neighbors, it looks like, have said they have no problem with it, and the fact that doesn't have a garage, well, a lot of those surrounding him do. Personally, I really don't see a problem with it, so
What struck me is it didn't appear that it came with a garage that was enclosed.
Yeah,
Odd. The
Yeah.
house was built without a garage, and during the New Deal, when they were building houses, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, with a 1-car garage, that's what I grew up in.
Yeah.
It just seemed kind of.
this would just, yeah, if anything, it deprives the applicant of the garage if we don't give it to him. So I guess I'm not seeing anything that would be a problem. But then again, I'm 1 out of 4, so, but I'm open for a motion there.
I'll make that motion. I make a motion to recommend approval of 919 Marlene Drive, with the variance application of VR 1901.
Okay, so we have a motion for an approval. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. right, we have a motion for approval by Member Mellon. We have a second by Member Wunderlich. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
All right. So it passes 3-1 to recommend it onto the commission for approval there. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I clarify why
Sure.
I voted
Absolutely.
against it. My concern here is that, just for the record, because 4 criteria are required, I really struggle with finding the special condition or circumstances that exist. While I do agree that it would make his home more compatible with the other homes in the area, and I'm glad that he was able to get the support of his neighbors, but in reviewing the criteria, it does seem to be a bit of a challenge. So that was why I voted against it. So I just wanted that to be clear.
All right. Okay. Any other additional comments or questions?
I looked at that line, item number 1, too, number 1 also, about special conditions peculiar to the structures. Is it sufficient that the peculiar nature is that he doesn't have a garage?
Yeah.
Maybe it is. Because all these others seem to have the advantage of having come with a built-in garage.
Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to miscellaneous. Included in your packet is the project status report and the May calendar. Mr. Romer, we'll turn it back over to you there for status updates and an overview.
You can see we're downtown's feverishly moving around, and more milestones are being met every day, every week. Things are shaping up. We are watching attending to the palm trees on Blueford. There's a little yellowing. If you see on Old Winter Garden Road, they're finalizing some additional landscape east of Blackwood Avenue. So that CRA is still doing many of their projects. We expect City Center to pull their foundation permits this week or next week to start that large project. We have a lot going on. Ocoee Business Park, they have 3 buildings. One of them is 300,000 square foot, and they are preparing to have that permit issued. We have a lot of projects that are closing out this month and a lot that will be breaking ground. We're excited.
Yes. Questions? I'm going to do one quick question, and only because I saw this on, I'm not sure if it was Rants and Raves or in Facebook or something like that, but one of the questions, and I really didn't know if we've got anything on the books for it or against it. Someone was talking about tiny homes and tiny home subdivisions. Do we have anything preventing or allowing those? And if so, if it's allowing, is it only foundational, which would probably be my preference, as opposed to those that are on wheels and could be moved?
Yes, we do not have a special provision in our code yet. We're watching what many of the jurisdictions are doing. You can fit a small house, it would have to be on a trailer, but not a landscape trailer. In the Pioneer Keys, both of those are fee simple owned. You can fit by small square footage, not having to meet that 1,000 square foot living area. You could put like you expressed you desired that type of a tiny home in those 2 developments. We haven't had anybody propose on any of the few vacant parcels we have for in low density residential or medium density, a tiny home community. But we have had 2 people, one ask about tiny homes and one ask about building a container home instead of a normal single family home. And our codes for that that's not what you asked, but
Right.
it's living area.
Yeah.
And it's, so if you can make it living area and you're not in a HOA, you might be able to pull that off in some areas, so. But we are watching. We envision, I mean, as I said, the Pioneer Keys are fee simple owned lots. It's not a trailer park where it's all rental. A way to maybe, that could help change that area in the future. People start putting tiny homes there, smaller homes, but nothing yet. Thank you.
Short of any other questions, we'll accept a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, have a motion by Vice Chair Williams, second by Member Mullen. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Have a good rest of the evening there, all. We'll see you back here in June.
Very
Please,
nice
right?
format, very nice format. It gets better every month.